is said that every new day brings with it a new chance to change life. And here we are with you in front of you with Breakfast Show, a fresh edition of the show we're getting for you this Thursday morning. I'm Preeti. With me is Rukma. In the next 1 hour, we get for you everything that's making it to the headlines and to make sure, in fact, that your tea or coffee right in the morning tastes even better.
And well, we are covering all the major stories from across India and the globe. As our viewers are well aware, the race for the White House has reached a very interesting point. Right now, we'll be discussing with our reporter to analyze more in depth as to what it all means. Also back home, there are the Bihar elections. Campaigning continues, a high decibel campaigning rather for the final phase.
We'll keep you updated. Stay with us for the next 1 hour. First, the headlines.
Counting continues in the US presidential elections with a balance hinged on key battleground states. Biden's projected wins in Wisconsin and Michigan push his chances for the top job. Incumbent Trump attacks the vote counting process, pursues lawsuits.
United Nations adopts India's annual counter-terrorism resolution, co-sponsored by over 75 countries. The resolution was adopted by consensus in the UN General Assembly.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to chair Virtual Global Investor Roundtable. Top pension and sovereign wealth funds to participate. Meet to deliberate on accelerating international investments in India.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah reaches West Bengal on a 2-day visit, scheduled to do a Karyakarta Samvad with BJP cadres. Home Minister will also meet representatives of different communities in a Samajik Samuh Samvad.
It's the last day of campaigning in Bihar Assembly polls today before the third and final phase of elections for 78 seats on Saturday. Results will be declared on Tuesday.
Notification for the first District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir to be issued today. Polling to be held in 280 constituencies in 8 phases from November 28. Refugees from Pakistan to exercise franchise for the first time in 70 years.
Second batch of 3 Rafale fighter aircrafts arrive in Jamnagar after flying non-stop from France. First batch of 5 medium multi-role combat aircrafts landed in Ambala in July.
Army Chief General Narvane on a visit to Nepal will meet Nepal's President and Prime Minister. Army Chief to be awarded the honorary rank of General of the Nepal Army.
TV anchor Arnab Goswami sent to 2 weeks judicial custody by Alibag Court. His bail plea to be heard by Bombay High Court today. He was arrested by Maharashtra police yesterday amidst condemnation from all quarters.
All right, those are the top stories we're tracking this hour. Up next, we'll get to the news in detail. First, we begin with updates on the US presidential polls.
Right, Preeti, and as we were saying, the US presidential polls, the race for the White House at a very interesting stage today, even as well. Biden, it seems, is nearing the magic mark of 270. Trump trailing far behind.
Yes, let's get to the details on that now. Democratic presidential challenger Joe Biden on Wednesday neared the magic figure of 270 electoral votes needed to win the White House, with several battleground states still in play as incumbent President Donald Trump challenged the vote count. As it stands, there are 5 states still left uncalled, including major prizes such as Pennsylvania and key small state of Nevada, meaning both Trump and Biden still have a path to victory. So far, Biden has reached 264 electoral votes as against 214 so far for Trump. Earlier, in a brief address on the national television, Biden said that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. He stressed that this will be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. While Trump's campaign has announced a lawsuit to try and suspend the vote counting in Michigan, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, citing irregularities. However, the mail-in ballots could take days or weeks to be counted in some states, meaning a final winner might not be declared today unless a candidate bags a landslide victory. American presidential elections are decided not by popular vote but by securing a majority in the state-by-state electoral college, which has 538 members. The U.S. Elections Project estimated a total turnout at a record 160 million voters, including more than 101.1 million early voters, 65.2 million of whom voted by mail. All right, the battle for the White House, in fact, poised interestingly there. Both the contenders are still in the race, and I don't think it will be too early, Rupma, to call it a day for Trump, or for that matter, let's see how the day ahead pans out.
Right, Preeti, as you said, with several battleground states still in play, incumbent President Donald Trump has challenged the vote count. Now, that is an interesting development. We'll be with our reporter in a short while. We're trying to connect to him. Amritpal Singh will be joining us to give us a more in-depth analysis. And, well, even as Preeti, you just mentioned, it's time perhaps for Trump to call it a day, although the American voting system, the American presidential election system is rather complicated.
Yes, and also the swing states, as we call them, they are the deciding factor in the US presidential polls. This is how we saw in what happened in 2016 also, when Hillary Clinton had to lose because she was not supported by the adequate number of electoral votes, and that is how Trump was, was brought to power.
Right.
And today we see again a similar sort of contest between Biden and Trump. So again, we'll have to wait and watch.
As you just mentioned, 5 states still left uncalled so far, as we know. And there are major prizes like Pennsylvania and key small state Nevada. And both of them have a path to victory. But right now, the numbers speak for themselves. Even as Biden is approaching the magic count of 270, Trump is trailing at 214.
Yes, another deciding factor this time is the fact that more than 100 million voters voted through mail. And to talk more about it, our correspondent Amrit Pal is joining us on phone. Amrit, when we talk of the how interesting is the contest in the US, contest towards White House poised, Biden still, Biden has reached 264 electoral votes, and Trump is trailing behind with 214. How do you see the contest right now? Is victory in sight for Biden, or is it too early for Trump to call it a day?
Well, it's a very close contest. I mean, if the numbers that you're telling, it looks like, victory is just within the reach of Joe Biden. But remember, the big state like Pennsylvania, the results have to still come in. Donald Trump is very much in the race. I wouldn't say Donald Trump is completely out, but clearly Joe Biden at this moment has an edge. Looks like Nevada would go the way of Joe Biden, but Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia are also states whose results have to come in. So, those could be deciding factors But yes, at the moment, Joe Biden seems to be inching towards victory.
Right, and well, Amritpal, we are hearing Trump talking about lawsuits. We are hearing him criticize the electoral system, the counting system, demanding that counting be stopped. How is that to be looked at?
That's what he said yesterday in his late night address, where he said that he would approach the Supreme Court, and he believes that this whole postal mail system is something what he calls disenfranchising the voter, and he said clearly that he will approach the Supreme Court on that. So I think he's given indications enough that if he loses this race, he would want to look at exploring legal options. Now that could delay the whole process. We've seen in the past, remember during Al Gore and George W. Bush's time, they had gone to the Supreme Court over the issue of Florida's vote, when finally by one vote George Bush did win and become president of the United States. Now if Donald Trump wishes to go that way and comes good on what he said yesterday, then it could mean a further delay in the outcome of the result.
All right, Amrit, also tell us more about it. What is the procedure after that if Trump carries on with this lawsuit?
He has hinted, he hasn't made it clear that what exactly would be his point in the court. But what he's basically raising objections on is the mail system, which he says postal ballot mail system. Now, which he says that is disenfranchising the voter. The postal mail system exists on the book. It has been used in the past. But he says that it has the ability to commit a fraud on the American voter. Now we'll have to see what exact points or what is the exact plea that his lawyers take. If he's just playing a bad loser, the Supreme Court will throw out the case. But if his lawyers do come up that there is a malpractice in the postal system, or the postal system has the possibility of being rigged, then the Supreme Court will look into it. Depends if the Supreme Court does say that the postal ballot is a valid vote and that we counted and added to the final figure, then the outcome remains what it does. If he has a legal loophole on the postal ballot system, then we have to see in the final arithmetic how it plays out. So the outcome would really depend upon that.
All right, Amrit, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs.
And moving on now to other news stories. Back home, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will chair the Virtual Global Investor Roundtable, VGIR, today. The roundtable is being organized by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India and National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. It is an exclusive dialogue between leading global institutional investors, Indian business leaders and the highest decision makers from the Government of India and financial market regulators.
And permanent representative to the United Nations, T.S. Tirumurti, on Wednesday announced that India's annual resolution on the issue of counter-terrorism was co-sponsored by over 75 countries and adopted by consensus in the first committee of the UN General Assembly. In a tweet, Tirumurti said that India is at the forefront of counter-terrorism. He said that he was delighted that the annual resolution tabled by India on measures to prevent terrorists from acquiring weapons of mass destruction was co-sponsored by more than 75 countries and adopted by consensus in the first committee of UN General Assembly. India, a victim of state-sponsored cross-border terrorism, has been at the forefront in highlighting the serious threat to international peace and security emanating from acquisition of weapons of mass destruction by terrorist groups.
Union Home Minister and senior BJP leader Amit Shah reached Kolkata on Wednesday night for a two-day visit to the state. His visit is expected to boost the party's preparations for assembly elections scheduled to be held next year. In a tweet, Amit Shah wholeheartedly thanked people of West Bengal and Karyakartas for the love, warmth and support extended. On the first day of his visit, Shah will visit Bankura to meet party workers and leaders from different sections of society. Party workers from two zones, Rar and Hooghly Midnapur, covering over 70 assembly seats from the southern region of West Bengal, will attend the meeting. On November 6, Shah will hold a number of meetings in the state capital with party workers in Kolkata, office bearers from more than 80 assembly constituencies from Nabadweep in south-central Bengal and Kolkata region. At Shah's organisational meetings during his stay, he is likely to be joined by top BJP leadership of the state, district leadership of the concerned zones, apart from Kailash Vijayvargiya and Arvind Menon from the central party leadership. He will meet party workers and leaders mainly from south and southwestern region of West Bengal, as BJP still has a lot of ground to gain in these parts compared to the north, from where it has 12 MPs out of its total tally of 18. By winning 18 Lok Sabha seats out of the total 42 in West Bengal in 2019 general elections, the BJP emerged as the main challenger for the ruling TMC in the state.
All right, after giving you an update on the US presidential polls, time now to get you a hint of what all is going in the poll-bound state of Bihar, how temperatures are soaring, how mercury is rising there, and also as we speak, it's the third phase of campaigning still in progress, the last day of the third phase of campaigning. And up next in this segment, we'll get you updates from the poll-bound state of Bihar.
Right, many candidates Campaigning is scheduled to end today for the third and final phase of the Bihar State Assembly elections. In this phase, 78 constituencies spread over 15 districts will go to the polls on the 7th of November. Polling for by-elections to Valmiki Nagar parliamentary seat will also be held in this phase. Senior leaders and star campaigners of all parties held multiple rallies in poll-bound Mithilanchal, Seemanchal, Tirhut and Kosi areas of the state.
After two rounds, the attention in the Bihar Assembly election has shifted to the remaining constituencies in the last phase. Incumbent Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, BJP President JP Nadda and UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath continue to hold the reins of the NDA's campaign in Bihar. Addressing rallies in Seemanchal area, Nitish Kumar brought to mention the chaos that ruled the area during the previous regimes. He also promised more power reforms in the area.
अभी तो आपको हर घर बिजली पहुंचाए हैं, अगली बार मौका दे दीजिएगा तो हर गांव में हम सोलर स्ट्रीट लाइट लगा देंगे, घर का बत्ती बुझाइएगा और रात भर गांव में उजाला ही उजाला रहेगा.
JP Nadda continued his tour of the state and urged the voters to vote the NDA back to power.
जंगल राज के युवराज विपक्ष के नेता थे, ये विधानसभा में एक दिन भी नहीं गए. विधानसभा, ये विधानसभा में विपक्ष का नेता गायब होना, ये व्यक्ति नहीं, ये बिहार की जनता के साथ धोखा है. इस बात को समझना चाहिए, इस बात को जानना चाहिए. इसलिए ऐसे लोगों को आराम दो और मेहनत करने वाले नीतीश बाबू को काम दो.
UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath also addressed people in Bihar and he reminded the people of the scams that have been tagged with the Congress-led regimes.
याद करिए मई 2014 में जब इस देश की जनता जनार्दन ने मोदी जी के हाथों में देश की कमान सौंपी थी, उससे पहले देश की स्थिति क्या थी? कांग्रेस और राजद का रोज एक नया घोटाला सामने आता था. कभी स्पेक्ट्रम घोटाला, कभी कॉमनवेल्थ घोटाला, कभी खाद्यान्न घोटाला, कहीं पर कोयला घोटाला और घोटाले पे घोटाले, घोटाले पे घोटाले उनकी एक प्रवृत्ति बन चुकी थी.
Handling the entire mantle of the Grand Alliance on his young shoulders, RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav seems to be walking a difficult path. He has claimed that the party is set to win the state after 2 rounds of polls. He continues to target the incumbent chief minister while reiterating his mastercard of 1 million jobs in the state if voted to power.
दोनों चरण जो है हम लोग जीत गए हैं और आपकी इस मजबूत संकल्प ने ये साबित कर दिया है कि बिहार असल मुद्दों पर चुनाव लड़ सकता है.
Congress leader Rahul Gandhi also addressed rallies in the state and targeted the EVMs, alleging malfunctioning of the machines.
EVM, उसका नाम EVM नहीं है, उसका नाम MVM है, मतलब मोदी वोटिंग मशीन. मगर इस बार बिहार में युवाओं में गुस्सा है, युवाओं के दिल में गुस्सा है. तो चाहे वो ईवीएम हो चाहे वो एमवीएम हो, गठबंधन जीतने जा रहा है.
In the last phase, votes will be polled for 78 seats. They will go up for grabs in 15 districts of the state. Counting will be held on the 10th of November. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining us now is our correspondent Salman Haider to tell us more about the campaigning and the elections as they are happening. Salman, a very good morning to you. When we talk about the campaigning, clearly high decibel campaigning, candidates going all out to woo voters. Nitish Kumar approaching the people on the plank of development, promising more development. What seems to be Tejasvi's strategy?
Good morning, Rukma and Preeti. As you said, Nitish Kumar is focusing on development work he has done in his present regime and the previous regimes, and also promising the voters for further development, like he said, street lights, solar street lights would be put in villages also, so that villages are more illuminated than ever. So these are the things, and both the factions, both the alliances, the Grand Secular Alliance and NDA, are wooing the young voters. They are focusing on young voters because they are particularly they are the deciding factor where they go. The victory is there. So all the parties, all the alliances are claiming their victory right now, and as you said, it is the campaign has reached its full volume. Mercury is high. It is on optimum level now as the campaign ends this evening at 5. The 78, all the 78 seats of this third phase is going to poll day after tomorrow. And Valmiki Nagar parliamentary constituency is also there. And one more element is there because Simanchal is going to poll in this phase. AIMIM of Asaduddin Owaisi is also pitching for its presence in
all right, Salman.
Area. Yeah.
All right, Salman, 78 constituencies go to polls in the third phase. I would want you to tell us how is this phase different from the earlier 2 phases, and also when we talk of the political contest, or for that matter the candidates, the constituencies. Give us a very quick, brief, outlook of, in a nutshell, explain to us how important is this third phase.
As you can see, the blue-colored map is going to poll in this third and final phase. And this Simanchal area is particularly deprived of development for so long. Unemployment and migration is there. So every party is promising employment and industrialization, rapid industrialization of the area. And it is bordering with the West Bengal, and flood, migration, underdevelopment and unemployment are the major issues for which all the parties and alliances are pitching. Yes.
All right, Salman, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. That was our correspondent Salman Haider telling us more about the third phase of polling and for which the campaigning will end today.
Right, and all eyes on the final phase of the elections. Their results will be declared on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Election Commission is organizing a 3-day International Virtual Election Visitors Program 2020 for foreign election management bodies starting from today in the context of the ongoing Bihar Legislative Assembly elections. Bihar has an electorate of over 72 million, one of the largest in the world to vote so far amid the COVID pandemic. This provides us with an opportunity to share our best practices and experience of the conduct of our poll process during the pandemic period. Delegates from over 40 countries across the world, including Afghanistan, Australia, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malawi, Maldives, etc., and 3 international organizations have been invited to participate in the event.
And also dates for the first ever District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir have been announced. The State Election Commission announced that polling will be held in 280 constituencies in 8 phases from November 28th. Refugees from Pakistan will be able to exercise franchise for the first time in 70 years. Elections for the vacant seat of sarpanches and panches and urban local bodies will also be held simultaneously with the DDC polls. State Election Commissioner has said that polling will take place through electronic voting machines, that is the EVMs, while postal ballots will be available for COVID-19 patients in isolation, senior citizens and physically unwell patients. With the announcement of DDC polls, Model Code of Conduct has come into effect. The first formal notification for the first phase of elections will be issued today. Delimitation has been done for the constituencies and 280 DDCs have been identified across the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory. The term of the DDC will be for 5 years. West Pakistan refugees will also be entitled to exercise their right to vote for the first time.
And let's now bring you a roundup with regard to COVID-19 developments in India.
With a high number of COVID patients recovering every day and the sustained fall in the mortality rate, India's steady trend of registering dipping active cases continues. The active caseload is sustained below the 6 lakh mark for the 6th consecutive day. On Wednesday, India's active caseload stands at 5,33,787. The national recovery rate has reached 92.09%. The country's testing capacities have expanded rapidly. The cumulative tests are nearly 11.3 crores. A total of 12.09 lakh tests were conducted in the last 24 hours. 25 states, UTs, have better tests per million than the national average. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan inaugurated via video conference a prefabricated isolation center for COVID-19 at NDRF's 4th Battalion station at Arakonam in Tamil Nadu. This is a special type of structure made entirely of steel and can be converted into hospital within 1 or 2 days. This is equipped with all facilities and is beneficial in times of disaster or COVID-like pandemic. Delhi government has started conducting targeted COVID-19 tests in markets and other crowded places to strengthen its surveillance mechanism amid a surge in daily coronavirus cases in the national capital in the last few days. The national capital has been witnessing a fresh surge in coronavirus cases. On Tuesday, Delhi recorded over 6,000 fresh COVID-19 cases for the first time. The Maharashtra government gave its nod for the reopening of cinema halls, drama theatres, multiplexes and auditoria outside the containment zones. The notification issued by the state chief secretary said these entertainment zones will be allowed to reopen from Thursday at 50% of the capacity. Karnataka's education minister has said that the government has not yet decided to reopen schools. He said the education department would give a report to the chief minister in the next 4 or 5 days to take a call. In Tamil Nadu, COVID-19 curve continues to dip with the active caseload falling to 19,201. The new cases in the last 24 hours have come down to 2,435, including 669 in Chennai. Total recoveries in Tamil Nadu crossed the milestone of 7 lakh on Tuesday against the total infections of nearly 7.32 lakhs.
And the second batch of Indian Air Force Rafale aircrafts arrived in India on Wednesday night. The 3 jets arrived at Jamnagar Air Base in Gujarat after flying non-stop from France with mid-air refueling on the way at 8:14 p.m. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh congratulated Indian Air Force for successfully accomplishing a highly complex mission in a professional and safe manner. As per the delivery schedule, 3 to 4 jets will reach India every 2 to 3 months till all the 36 are delivered under the deal inked with France in September 2016.
Army Chief General Narvane, who is on a 3-day visit to Nepal, will be conferred with the honorary rank of General of the Nepal Army today. The honorary rank of General of the Nepal Army will be conferred to General Narvane by Nepal President Bidyadevi Bhandari during a function in the President's office. The Army Chief will also meet Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and his Nepali counterpart Purna Chandra Thapa during the visit. Apart from this, General Narvane will distribute medical equipment and ventilators to 2 field hospitals of the Nepali Army for dealing with the COVID pandemic.
The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved allocation of 1,810.56 crore rupees for Lori Hydroelectric Project Stage 1, and also a green nod was given for total 4 MOUs. The Cabinet also discussed the fact that economy is coming back on fast track despite COVID-19 pandemic.
With a view to promote clean energy in the country, in a landmark decision, the Union Cabinet has approved 1,810 crore rupees investment proposal of 210 megawatt Lohri Stage 1 hydropower project on River Satluj. The project is expected to be commissioned within a span of 62 months and when completed would lead to an annual reduction of 6.1 lakh tons of carbon dioxide from the environment.
इससे 2000 लोगों को प्रत्यक्ष और अप्रत्यक्ष रोजगार के अवसर मिलेंगे। हिमाचल को 1140 करोड़ रुपए की बिजली मुफ्त मिलेगी और जो प्रकल्प बाधित है उन लोगों को 10 साल के लिए हर एक परिवार को 100 यूनिट बिजली मुफ्त मिलेगी। तो ये सबके फायदेमंद एक नया इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट आज मंजूर किया है।
The cabinet also discussed the economic situation and noted that the economy is coming back on track at a faster rate than expected as per data from the second quarter.
जीएसटी पिछले साल के अक्टूबर में जितना मिला था उससे ज्यादा 1,05,000 करोड़ रुपए अक्टूबर महीने में प्राप्त हुआ। एक तरह से सभी क्षेत्रों में एक सतत मांग का विकास, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट इन डिमांड ये नजर आ रही है। जो इनपुट यूज करते हैं उत्पादन के लिए उसकी खरीद भी बढ़ी है, यानी उत्पादन बढ़ने का प्लानिंग है और उत्पादन बढ़ रहा है। इसके लिए ज्यादा माल खरीद हो रही है, उसका इनपुट ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है।
Union INB Minister Prakash Javadekar also said that farmers of Punjab had sold a record 158 lakh metric tons of paddy, which proved that they were happy. Javadekar further stressed on the benefits that farmers would get by selling produce at a higher MSP. The minister questioned the Punjab government over their support to commission agents rather than focusing on farmers' welfare.
इस साल सरकार ने ही खरीद किया जो हर साल होगा। यह बताया है कि सरकार की खरीद जारी रहेगी। इस साल 158 लाख टन सरकार ने खरीद किया है धान और किसानों ने दिया है, लाखों किसानों ने दे दिया है, उनका विश्वास है नए सिस्टम में। किसी ने ये नहीं कहा कि मंडी बंद हो गई, एमएसपी बंद हो गया। जो दुष्प्रचार हुआ वो गलत था, ये भी सच साबित हुआ है।
Along with this, the Cabinet has given its nod to total 4 MOUs. Cabinet has approved the Memorandum of Understanding between India and Israel on cooperation in the field of health and medicine and in the field of telecommunication ICTs with the United Kingdom. With inputs from Shailendra Mishra, Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, going back to our top story of the US presidential polls, our correspondent Ira Spitzer is joining us from the US to get us more on that. Ira, thank you so much for joining us. When we talk of the race to White House, very interestingly, the contest is poised, but Biden leading with 264 electoral votes and Trump trailing behind 214. I would want you to first get us the current update on that, and also do we see victory in sight for Biden, or is it a little too early for Trump to call it a day?
For the last few hours, the most significant developments earlier today were the television network here calling the state of Michigan for Joe Biden. So now, as you mentioned, he is really knocking on the door. 70 electoral votes, what he needs to win the presidency. So where are those votes going to come from? And when will we find out? One possible path for him is through the state of Pennsylvania. That is a state where Trump is currently leading, but they are continuing to count ballots, and the votes that they are counting are largely absentee ballots, and so those are believed to be leaning strongly Democrat, strongly for Biden. So the count in Pennsylvania could yield a Biden victory in that state. That would put him on a path to 270. Another path for Joe Biden goes through the state of Nevada as well as Arizona. If you can secure those two states, he would also get to 270. So it's looking fairly good for Joe Biden, but it still is too early to call the race right now because, as we've seen throughout this process, things have shifted pretty quickly. President Trump declared a victory last night, even which has come under a lot of criticism, but the Biden camp is careful not to do that. But they do say that they believe they have the votes to win this thing.
Right, Ira, but when we talk about President Trump, well, it started off with criticizing the electoral system. It started off with criticizing the counting of votes, and now he's moving court. What does it mean, and what are the implications of that?
Well, President Trump, as we know here, is making all sorts of legal moves to challenge, including Michigan, including now the state of Georgia. But I think the strategy here from Trump is necessary, but it's also going to out.
All right, so that was FSN reporter Ira Spitzer joining us from the US and letting us know that it is still a little too early to for Trump to call it a day, and we'll have to wait and watch how the days ahead pan out. Remember, the electoral process there is different from what we see in our country. There, the electoral votes, the electoral colleges, they matter a lot, and also the mail-in votes, the ballot votes have not yet been counted completely, and that is what is delaying the results, and we'll have to wait and watch.
Right, and Ira has been continuously with us in DD India as our reporter there on the ground throughout that 14-hour coverage that DD India gave our viewers nationwide from across the Atlantic, and we hope you really enjoyed that. And now moving on back in the bulletin.
And back home, Arnab Goswami, editor-in-chief of Republic TV, who was arrested by Maharashtra police yesterday, has been sent to judicial custody till 18th November by Alibag Court. His bail matter will be heard by the Bombay High Court today. Home Minister Amit Shah called Arnab's arrest an attack on the fourth pillar of democracy. Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar said that the arrest of the journalist brought back the memories of the emergency. Editors Guild expressed shock and said that state power should not be used against critical reporting by the media.
Freedom of press and journalism as it is in severe threat in Maharashtra. On a 2-year-old case on the charges of abetment of suicide, Maharashtra police early Wednesday arrested Republic TV editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami and 2 others. The case pertains to suicide of a 53-year-old interior designer and his mother in 2018.
Arnab Goswami was physically assaulted in his house by 2 police officers. His house was cordoned off for 3 hours. There are abrasions on his hand here, on his left hand. So he appeals to the citizens of India to support in this case.
Raigad police has arrested Arnab under section 305 of the IPC.
All right, we'll get that report for you in a while from now, but at present we're again joined in by a correspondent from the US, Ira Spitzer. Ira, just a while back we were talking about what next if Trump files a lawsuit and what are the implications. Please continue.
Well, so President Trump, as I started to mention earlier, is known for filing a great deal of lawsuits in his life as a business person. So it appears that he has now adopted this strategy as he is trying to stave off defeat in this presidential election. It's hard to really say how serious the courts will take these lawsuits. Of course, they will have to weigh them on the merits, but it's not as if Trump can just declare, okay, this is unconstitutional, that is unconstitutional. I think what he's really trying to do is just throw everything at the courts and see if something can stick, because of course if he can make some traction in a state where the vote counting is close enough where a successful legal challenge could make a difference, that could of course help him. But on the other hand, it does seem to be quite a desperate move at this point, which sort of undercuts his message that he has actually won the election. So kind of dangerous territory for President Trump, but it's certainly nothing unexpected or new. He's been signaling that he's been planning to do this pretty much since he started making the baseless claims that mail-in voting would be fraudulent. We knew then that lawsuits would be part of the ultimate strategy if the election was close and if he appeared to be in some sort of trouble.
Right, Ira, the opinion before the voting was held, before the counting of votes, was that it's a country divided between 2 candidates with totally opposite views of where they want to take America. Has the vote confirmed this?
Well, I think the vote has raised new questions about just how divided the country is. There was some thought, okay, well, if you believe the opinion polls heading into the election, Joe Biden was going to win a landslide victory. The Democrats were going to take over the Senate, and there would be this repudiation of Trumpism and of Donald Trump. Well, that's not the election that we saw in the United States. Well, Joe Biden perhaps is going to win the election. He certainly is struggling to gain the number of votes to put him over the hump. Many people voted for Donald Trump, and now with Trump's claims that he has won the election, now basically competing claims from the Biden camp, I think the division in the United States is probably on track to get worse if there are doubts about the election results. We did hear from Joe Biden earlier in the day talking about reconciliation. That was really the message that he was trying to convey, that he would be the president of not just Democrats, but of all Americans. But are those Republicans who voted for Trump listening? Hard to say at this point.
All right, Ara, I would want you to talk more about how far will Donald Trump filing a lawsuit have a bearing on the election results. To what extent can the results be delayed?
Well, the results do seem to be marching on at this point in time. Of course, he did bring up in his election night or morning remarks the specter of the Supreme Court. That's the highest court in the land. Of course, the Supreme Court would potentially have the authority to make some sort of judgment on the legality of vote counting. So there is certainly, I don't want to discount the possibility that Trump's legal challenges could be successful. But that being said, we haven't really seen any success so far with these legal challenges. The vote counting is going on. The election officials are declaring winners as they see fit. So right now the election is happening just as we expected, but something would have to change pretty significantly for Trump's legal challenges to make a difference. But that's certainly possible when you look at the power of the Supreme Court in the United States and the judicial system in general. They did ultimately decide the 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush, but that was an entirely different set of circumstances.
Right, Ira, thank you very much for joining us there and for all your inputs and for that in-depth analysis of the entire election process as well as of the race for the White House.
Yes. Up next, we'll get you the web review, wherein one of our correspondents join us and also let us know what headlines have been put forth in the social media platforms. And for the web news review, our colleague, correspondent Nancy is joining us. Nancy, good morning. Let us know what headlines have you picked up for us from the web portals of social media?
Begin from the news from the Indian Express, where of course the government saying that airlines can operate maximum 60% of the pre-COVID domestic flights till February 24th next year. In fact, Indian Airlines can operate maximum 60% of their pre-COVID domestic passenger flights, and that's up till 24th of February next year. While that's of course due to prevailing COVID-19 situation, the Civil Aviation Ministry has said. In fact, the ministry has also informed that the airlines about the 60% limit through an official order on 2nd September, but it had not told them the period for which the cap would remain in place. And now on, in fact, some days back, the ministry has also issued a new order clarifying that the 2nd September order shall remain in force until 24th of February 2021 or until further orders, of course, due to the prevailing situation vis-a-vis the COVID-19 pandemic across the world. Let's now move on and focus a bit on the COVID-19 situation in the national capital. The chief minister there, in fact, saying that Delhi is facing a third wave, but there is no need to panic. In fact, this is, of course, coming in the backdrop of the city facing a jump in the number of new COVID-19 cases in the last few days. It can be called a third wave that the national capital, Delhi, is currently facing. In fact, the chief minister also said that he's in fact assured the people of Delhi that there's no need to panic and the government is monitoring the situation regularly. Let's now move on to this news from the Indian Express. Indian origin Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy wins the US House race. This is of course coming in the backdrop as the race for the White House is of course something that DD India has been focusing on really well. This is about Indian origin Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy being re-elected to the US House of Representatives for a third consecutive term. Now, of course, Krishnamurthy was born in New Delhi and he easily defeated Preston Nelson of the Libertarian Party. And when last reports came in, he had accounted for nearly 70% of the total votes counted. He was the first, in fact, elected to the House of Representatives in 2016. All right, and moving on to our last news item for the web review this morning. And this is, of course, Sri Lanka. They're rescuing 120 whales after country's largest stranding. Sri Lanka has, in fact, saved some 120 pilot whales in a grueling overnight rescue involving the Navy after the island nation's biggest stranding. And to tell you more about this, well, 3 pilot whales and 1 dolphin had died of injuries following the mass beaching on the country's western coast at the Panadura. That was some 25 kilometers south of the capital Colombo, and now Sri Lanka, they're rescuing 120 whales after country's largest stranding that's taking place. Well, that's all the news that we have for our viewers this morning from the web review. It's back to you, Preeti and Rukma.
All right, thank you, Nancy, for that web review.
And now in our next segment, we'll get you all the news from across the globe, even as countries in the West particularly brace for another wave of COVID outbreak.
Britain's head towards a new 4-week-long COVID-19 lockdown amid soaring cases of the viral disease. Restaurants in London saw heavy crowd thronging to dine as non-essential establishments will remain closed in the country for at least a month. People thronged streets hours before the lockdown came into force. Meanwhile, authorities have urged people to stay at home to combat a surge in new infections that scientists say could, if unchecked, cause more deaths than the first wave. UK has so far over 10,99,060 cases of COVID-19 with more than 47,740 deaths.
Fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh region continues at multiple locations along the front line. Azerbaijan said its positions on the border with Armenia had been fired on with mortar bombs and small arms, and that the city of Fizuli between Nagorno-Karabakh and Iran had been shelled. Armenia's defense ministry denied the reported shelling of Fizuli and reported an attack denied by Azerbaijan in the direction of Karvajar, a town in the northwestern part of the conflict zone. The ethnic Armenian-controlled Nagorno-Karabakh Defense Ministry says 1,177 of its troops have been killed since September 27th. Azerbaijan does not disclose its military casualties, while Russia has estimated 5,000 deaths on both sides.
And now we'll go to our next segment, Spotstrike, wherein we'll get you updates from the world of sports. Rafael Nadal became the only 4th player to earn 1,000 open-era single victories as he opened his title bid at the Rolex Paris Masters with a 4-6, 7-6, 6-4 comeback victory against Feliciano Lopez. In his first match since he captured a record-extending 13th Roland Garros title last month, Nadal served 16 aces and saved 3 of the 4 break points to make further history in the French capital. The Spaniard, who is chasing his first title, improved to 225 at the ATP Masters 1000 tournament. Nadal joins Jimmy Connors, Roger Federer and Ivan Lendl in the exclusive 1000 wins club. The 34-year-old earned his maiden tour level victory at home against Ramon Delgado in Mallorca in 2002.
And time now for our health segment, in which we provide you with various health issues and how to deal with them. Snoring affects many. It not only disrupts sleep, it also poses health risks. Our correspondent Kiran Bharadwaj spoke to Dr. Manjari Tripathi about how to get rid of this extremely, perhaps most annoying habit.
Most people consider snoring as a sign of good sleep. What do experts say about snoring? Let's understand from Dr. Manjari Tripathi. Dr. Manjari, many people snore while sleeping. Is it normal or a problem?
Obstructive sleep apnea is very common, where there is loud snoring in sleep and pauses in breath while sleeping, and during this time the brain is deprived of oxygen. When it's deprived of oxygen, well, what happens is that the person's performance goes, and in the morning when they get up, they do not have a refreshing sleep. So they feel more sleepy and they feel like going back to bed.
If a person snores while sleeping, when to see a doctor?
Excessive sleepiness can be hazardous, particularly if you are driving. If you doze even for a few seconds, you can be in a very bad accident, either for pilots or for heavy vehicle drivers or for your personal vehicles. Hence, if there is excessive sleep, you must report to the doctor to find out the cause.
Why is it essential to get treatment for snoring?
What will happen is that sleep will decrease. Either there will be insomnia, or next day there may be hypersomnia, that is excessive sleep, and in the morning hours the person may sleep and hence may not be able to work. In addition to this, the person's memory will come down. If it is an employee at work, their performance at work will come down. There will be an increasing dependence on stimulants like caffeine, which are harmful to health and can cause heart disorders. And also it can lead to obesity, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, stroke. In addition to that, there is a decrease in memory, performance, judgment and planning due to obstructive sleep apnea.
If a person snores while sleeping, what should be done?
It's very important that obstructive sleep apnea is picked up early and diagnostic testing is done in the sleep lab by polysomnography, after which we usually request the person to sleep on the side and lose at least 5 kgs of weight, and also use a CPAP machine wherever required. It's very important that we realize that diseases can occur in sleep and sleep is essential for a healthy life.
If people around you complain that you snore while sleeping, do not take it lightly, do not ignore it. Meet a medical expert, try to find out the cause and get it treated appropriately. Because snoring along with daytime fatigue may be a sign of a health problem. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Alright, do take your snoring seriously and visit a doctor. This is what suggests the health report for today. Up next, we'll get you the weather report.
And well, a cyclonic circulation lies over southwest Bay of Bengal off Sri Lanka coast, and a trough runs from southeast Arabian Sea to Karnataka coast across Lakshadweep area in lower tropospheric levels. Under its influence, scattered to fairly widespread rain very likely over Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, Kerala and Mahe, south interior Karnataka and Lakshadweep during the next 5 days.
Isolated heavy rainfall with moderate thunderstorm and lightning also likely over Tamil Nadu during next 5 days, and generally dry weather very likely to prevail over most parts of north, west and central India and over some parts of East India during the next 5 days. Up next, we get to temperatures across major cities and towns of the country.
And well, with that, we come to the end of this edition of Breakfast News. But as we go, we'll leave you with glimpses of several music and dance performances that were held in the United States as part of the non-partisan social media movement, Joy to the Polls. One high-profile event was headed by rap musician Busta Rhymes in Harlem as New York citizens lined up to vote.
All right, have a beautiful day ahead and take a look at these beautiful, interesting visuals coming in. But before we leave you again, we leave you with this quick reminder to join the Mask Up India initiative, which we are running on DD India and DD News. Remember, the best, cost-effective and the most efficient way to fight COVID-19 is to wear a mask. It's just a simple task, wear a mask, but wear it properly and correctly. With that, a reminder, we'll end this breakfast show here. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.